Hello everyone, JB Thrills here, back with another video. Now recently, there's been a trend going around the coaster community. If you don't know what I'm talking about, well, essentially, Six Flags announced that they'll be removing a total of 15 rides in their parks. And because there's 15 Six Flags parks, everyone assumes that one ride will leave each Six Flags park. And this news struck the coaster community hard, and before you knew it, every single coaster enthusiast started making videos about the news and making their predictions of which ride is leaving in which park. Now while I could do the same, I decided to take a different route. The reason is because I've seen way too many of those videos, and they get very repetitive, as well as I've noticed a pattern. Most of the enthusiasts making their predictions for each park probably hasn't been to each Six Flags park. Maybe they have, and that's good, but at the same time, maybe they haven't. And every time an enthusiast who hasn't been to every Six Flags park comes over to Six Flags Over Texas and makes their prediction, they are way off. So essentially, it pushed me to make my own video about this. Now I won't be predicting all the Six Flags parks. I will specifically predict which ride is leaving Six Flags Over Texas, because it's my home park. And don't you think the people whose home park is specific Six Flags park know more about which ride is old or which ride can most likely leave than another person would who lives far away? And because I've been to Six Flags Over Texas since I was 6 years old, I've seen lots of rides and attractions leave the park, and sometimes it comes as unexpected. So in today's video, I'm going to place my predictions of which ride will leave Six Flags Over Texas, if any, and why I think they're leaving. Now before I go into my predictions, I would like to say, if you like my content and videos, make sure to tap the like button, subscribe button, and tap the notification bell to know when new videos are coming out. 73.4% of you who watch my videos aren't subscribed, and it would help a ton if you did. But anyways, let's get into today's video. If you didn't already know, Six Flags Over Texas is the first Six Flags park, but sadly, it doesn't get treated that way. And before we begin, I want you to know that I love every ride there. I don't want to see any ride leave. Even the bad ones aren't too bad. It could be worse. And every ride in this park deserves respect. It's a great park. It's one of the few Six Flags parks that strip away from the regular Six Flags. It has its own charm. But anyways, back to the predictions. I've been to Six Flags Over Texas ever since I was 6 years old. I've seen and rode defunct rides that are not there no more. And after seeing one ride after another get removed and replaced, I've noticed a pattern. The pattern comes in 3 ways. Pattern number 1. The ride doesn't attract a lot of guests, is a classic or really old, and is sort of forgotten. Pattern number 2. The ride gets low capacity, is very expensive, rare, or costly to operate, and it takes a big chunk of land. Pattern 3. The ride has lots of technical difficulties, isn't that fun or makes people sick, is not a fan favorite, and could be replaced at any time. And then while I did say there was 3 patterns, there's actually another pattern, and I call it the wild card. The wild card is a ride or attraction that has no issues, is really fun, and is the least ride you expect to go. So with all these patterns, I composed a list of rides and coasters that could go because they fit one of these patterns. And yeah, I did say coasters. I'm only going to include them in case they leave, but honestly, I don't see any coaster going this year. It'll probably be leaving in the future. So anyways, let's get into our first ride that will possibly leave Six Flags Over Texas. The Six Flags Speedway. Basically, every flat ride other than the popular ones are in danger of getting removed. But there's a few flat rides that are for sure getting close to their end. And this ride is definitely getting close to its end. The Six Flags Speedway is a go-kart attraction right next to Shockwave. The ride is an upcharge attraction. And by upcharge, I mean upcharge. It's really expensive. It costs $30, and you only go around the track a few times. So again, it's not worth it. Plus, the scenery around the go-karts is really bad. Like sure, it goes under Shockwave, but everything else is just trees and grass. The go-karts located in Fifth, Texas are much better than this one. At least that one is more worth it. Plus, what's even crazier is that K1 Speed, a go-kart place, is right across the freeway from Six Flags Over Texas. No one comes to Over Texas to ride go-karts. If you want to ride go-karts, go to K1 Speed. This is literally the cheap knockoff, and it's still not cheap to ride. Even some employees of the park, who I know, don't like this ride. Not many people ride it, so they're just standing there doing nothing most of the time. And then the smell of gasoline is strong. Yeah, these go-karts are run by gasoline. So not only is it empty, but it's also costly to operate because gas doesn't come cheap. I mean, maybe for driving, but for entertainment, no. Plus, it's a huge chunk of land. Removing it would do all of us a big favor, and we could finally see a new flat ride come, or who knows, maybe even another coaster. So in result, I give it a 90% chance of the go-karts leaving. There's just too many downsides to this attraction. So let's move on to the next attraction. The Chaparral antique cars. Now before you go in the comment section and start getting mad and saying you're wrong. Well, just listen up. First of all, this ride's very old. I just had to say it. Some might even consider the ride outdated. Then, this ride has nothing impressive. The only impressive thing about it is the cars, because it's an old Ford Model T. But other than that, you look around and all you see is Texas Giant, which is pretty cool, then a little bit of Shockwave, and then just trees and grass. And then people walking on the pathways. That's not impressive. The ride is really slow, and while yes, it's a family ride, there's some other family rides better than this one. Now I'm not hating on it, and I don't want to see it go. It's a great ride, but it does have a chance of leaving. It also doesn't attract many guests to ride, and every time I get on it, it's a walk-on, unless it's a max capacity day or the day's just full of people. There's still some ways to fix this ride. For example, they can turn it into a transportation attraction. This ride has 2 entrances, well, it used to. The one that used to operate as the official entrance is the one right in front of Oil Derrick, but then one day they switched it back over to New Texas Giant, and the old entrance is deserted. But what if there was a way where they could connect both entrances and you can ride the car to the other side of the park easier, and you can get off at each station. And if you want to go around the whole route one time, you could just tell the employee, and the employee will say, okay, just make sure to drive all the way around. I think this ride will serve much better as a transportation attraction. But an actual ride just for scenic tours? No, it's really bad. But overall, I give it a 50% chance of leaving. It's a 50-50. I would consider this under the wild card category. Many people overlook this attraction, and then once it leaves, no one will expect it. So yeah, it's a wild card. Moving on. Next up on the list is, and it really hurts me to say it, El Sombrero. El Sombrero is a chance traffic attraction located in the Mexico section of the park. At the moment, this is the oldest ride in the park, and it's still holding up really fine. This is one of my favorite flat rides there. It defines the park. I don't know, but it just gives you some charm to it. It fits in with the Mexico section really well, and it's just a family favorite. It has no technical issues, it's not boring. The only issue is that it doesn't attract many guests. And it's giving me some deja vu. What do I mean, you may ask? Well, one time there was this ride in Over Texas by the name of Crazy Legs. It was a fun spinning attraction in Good Times Square, located near Texas Skyscraper. The ride spun you in all directions, and it was geared towards families. But it was still very fun, and I really enjoyed it. I grew up on that ride. It never got old. The only issue was that it didn't attract many people. Only on max capacity days it was full, but other than that, it was just normal. Then, one day in 2018, with the addition of the new Harley Quinn Spinsanity, Crazy Legs went away. Without warning too, and it made me really sad. I didn't expect that ride to go, no one did. And suddenly it did just because the name. Only because it was rethemed to Harley Quinn, and then the new ride was named Harley Quinn, they didn't want to retheme it again. And then it was just gone. And it didn't get replaced by anything good either. It was replaced with a chicken restaurant. A chicken restaurant, when Johnny Rockets, which also serves chicken, is right in front of it. So that was pointless. And that's what I see happening to El Sombrero. The ride is perfectly fun, fine, and really enjoyable. Then next year it gets torn out for another restaurant or even picnic tables. You see what I mean? I really hope this doesn't happen, but I had to mention it. And I give the removal of El Sombrero a 75% chance of happening. Yes, that high. It's because it's really likely and it's repeating the events of what happened to Crazy Legs. And Six Flags, if you're watching this, do not tear down El Sombrero. Just please, don't do it. Moving on to the next ride. This ride is also shocking that it made the list, but Harley Quinn's Spinsanity. Harley Quinn's Spinsanity is an ABC tourbillon attraction that's very new. It opened in 2018, and it's only been 2 years since we had this attraction. But it's very problematic. It breaks down so much, and it's very unreliable. Now while this is my favorite flat ride, and I love it in the whole entire world, I have to agree with this one. It breaks down so constantly. I once rode it and it broke down right after. And then I get stuck on this ride pretty often. And that sounds crazy, but it's true. I always get stuck on this ride for some reason. I think it's just too new. And because it's a prototype, it's hard to take care of. Now they could fix this, but it just has so many issues. It once even leaked oil when it was testing. But even though it breaks down so constantly, another reason it could still leave is because it's low ridership. Not many people get on this ride. The reason why is because the people who go to Six Flags Over Texas are mostly GP. And when they look at this attraction, they're like, no. And they call it a death trap, sketchy, unsafe. Even some coaster enthusiasts say no to this attraction because they think it'll make them sick. And I'll have to agree, it does kind of make you sick. So with low ridership and lots of technical problems, this ride could get removed. It's very costly to fix, and removing it would just end the misery. But I just hope they give it another go and it lasts another year, because I really like this attraction. So I give it a 50% chance of removal, because it's 50-50, we don't know if it's going to happen or not. But if it does get removed, I won't be surprised. Other flat rides that could be removed that I wanted to mention before we move on to the coasters is Rodeo, Cloud Bouncer, Cattle Lake Barge, and Gunslinger. All 4 of these rides get low ridership, as well as 3 of the 4 of these rides were close to removal. So seeing one of these rides go wouldn't be surprising, and it would make perfect sense. All 4 of these rides have a 35% chance of leaving. So now, let's move on to the coasters. Personally, I don't see any coaster leaving Six Flags Over Texas. Not this year anyway. It's a really bad idea and would affect the park's lineup, so they should not do it. But if they did, the 2 coasters that are on the chopping block is Shockwave and La Vibra. And before you get triggered in the comments and say, you can't remove Shockwave, that's bad. Well, listen. First of all, Shockwave is old, and Six Flags loves to innovate old attractions by replacing them with newer ones. Then, in the GP's eyes, this ride is not impressive. And while I would disagree because it has amazing airtime and it's a lot of fun, they aren't wrong. If you look at them through the GP's eyes, all you see is 2 loops and hills, that's it. So yeah, Shockwave is pretty bland. Then it's in the forgotten area of the park, as well as it doesn't get a lot of ridership. This ride is always a walk-on, except for max capacity days, and even on those days, it's still not that full. Plus, the final evidence that this ride is getting really old and could get removed is the VR. Remember when Six Flags announced that New Revolution VR stuff and they put them on coasters? Notice how they put the VR on all the rides that were apparently failing those years. They put the VR on rides that had low ridership and wasn't doing as well. And of course, they put the VR on Shockwave. Essentially, every coaster that had the VR stuff that year are all in danger of getting removed. So Shockwave is in danger. And I give it a 75% chance of removal if it happens this year. But honestly, I don't think it will. Then there's La Vibra, a ride that really sucks. This ride is very rough and it has very bad capacity. And you might be wondering, wait, but if the line is very long, how come this ride is bad? Well, the ride is long, not because it's popular, but because it has low capacity. If it had more capacity to the ride, the line would be just as long as Shockwave, almost empty. Plus, it doesn't help the fact that La Vibra is basically almost extinct. It's a rare and unique coaster, and you don't see these types anymore. And eventually, this type of coaster will go extinct. And it looks like La Vibra will go first. And that's why I give it an 87% chance of leaving, if it does. But again, I don't see that happening, because if they remove La Vibra, that means that they have to directly add a new coaster to it the following year. But obviously, they can't, so they can't remove La Vibra yet. I also wanted to quickly note the standing but not operating attractions, such as U.S. Sam Go River Adventure, the second flume of the log flume, and the abandoned stadium in the back. These 3 attractions are really old, abandoned, and for some reason people have excluded them out of their predictions just because they're standing but not operating. But I don't see it that way, so just keep that in mind, and don't be surprised if a standing but not operating attraction leaves the park, because it would totally make sense. But anyways, my final predictions of which ride is going to leave over Texas is the go-karts, El Sombrero, which I hope they don't do, and they better not do, and if they do a coaster, either La Vibra or Shockwave. And if none of those, probably the standing but not operating attractions. But anyways, what do you think of my predictions? Do you think they're accurate or probably true? Comment down below. But anyways, thank you for watching. This is JV Thrills signing out.